Good morning, Dave Rothschild, Virginia-based film photographer. And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing some prints that I made, and I wanted to talk to you guys about some of the prints that I've made that I'm happy with and why, and some of the prints that I've made or I've had someone else make for me, like a company, that I'm not happy with, and just the whole learning process about how certain types of images work on certain type of prints and papers, whereas other ones don't. And I still have so much to learn. I'm still kind of in the infancy of printing, but I wanted to share some of the prints that I have so far and just talk briefly about each one. So this first image here was shot on Ilford HP5, and it's a print that I'm extremely happy with. It is a pigment-based print that is on a cold press paper by Epson. It's a textured paper. It's a fine art paper. And I've tried printing black and white on digital C prints before, but that's just not the way to go. I quickly learned, because there's a color cast, it looks too warm, it just doesn't look right. So my best preference for black and white, I believe, is going to be, obviously a darkroom print, but this is the next best thing, and in some cases it's even better. The detail in this print is fabulous. It's exactly how I want it to look. The shadow detail is beautiful, the contrast is just right, the texture really adds kind of a grittiness to it, which mimics the scene in some ways. It's a misty scene, like a lot of my work, and it's a very busy scene, but it's a print that I'm very happy with. And once again, it's Epson cold press pigment based print, and this is an 11 by 14. And next up, kind of a random example, but this is actually a print I made a few years ago using Society 6. And they print inkjet pigment prints, and it looks great. The problem with these types of prints, though, is that unless they're protected, they can easily get scratched on the surface. So any minute scratch or marking will suddenly start to show up on the outside. You probably can't really see, but if you look closely at this print, it's very degraded since I first got it, and that's my fault for not protecting it. But I had to move it a couple different times because I was showing it at a tea shop one day, and I had to switch it out from a different frame, and I didn't realize how careful you had to be. But Society 6, their color prints look fantastic. It's fairly affordable, and this was actually shot on an iPhone back in somewhere around 2000, maybe 14 or 15, under the 14th Street Bridge in Washington, D.C., and the colors look great. I edited the image with the Visco app, and this is the only iPhone image. All the rest of the images I'll show you are going to be film shots. Okay, so here we have an image that is on it's another inkjet print, and the colors and the tones look great. I'm really happy with the overall print. I actually had it done at a place called Tweak Imaging online by a guy named Tony, and they're based out in Knoxville, Tennessee. Matt Day originally recommended them, and so I followed up on that and was really happy with his work. But in this particular image's case, I think I'd really prefer the image to be on a textured base paper. I think the more I've printed, the more I've realized a lot of my lower lit atmospheric type shots look better on texture based prints or texture based paper as pigment prints. So, but overall, again, the tonal qualities and just the look of the print itself is really good. Okay, here we have a quick example of an actual C print on Fuji Crystal Archive paper, and it's a chromogenic print, meaning it's a digital file that's the light from that file is projected onto light-sensitive paper. So it uses photochemistry to get the final result. It's not getting it from a negative, though; it's getting it from a digital file, and that's what your typical drugstore prints would be used. The process they'd use to get these types of prints. And this one has a little bit of a color cast, so I'm not particularly happy with the overall feel of the image in terms of the tone, but the detail and the resolution looks good, as it was professionally printed at my local lab. Okay, and here we actually have a contact sheet that a local lab of mine, the same place that did the last print, made using my color film. And the reason I had this contact sheet printed was because the entire roll of film was a project I did called Solitude, and I wanted the whole project to be shown in a contact sheet form just for reference and just to establish a little bit more of a connection between the images so I can figure out the story that I wanted to tell, since all of the images were made with the same project in mind. And just I wanted to share that because maybe some of you might be unaware that some local labs offer color contact sheets or even black and white contact sheets, in case you wanted to, in case you weren't, you didn't have access to a darkroom and you wanted that service. Okay, here we have an actual C print, which I described earlier. And this is an example of where a C print works really, really well in my particular case. This was actually shot on ADOX color implosion 35mm film. And the color looks absolutely fantastic. It's a little bit obviously surreal because that film is an experimental film, but the color and the detail look great on this Fuji Crystal Archive paper. It's an extremely busy scene, like a lot of my work, and for when the C prints work well, for my eyes, they have the most resolution of any type of printing that I've seen. When they don't work well, I'll talk about that in a little bit, but in this case, this is a very affordable way to print your work. Fuji Crystal Archive paper, as I said, and this cost me about $10. And here is another Fuji Crystal Archive print. This one I'm not quite as happy with, and I'll just say that I think I should have got this on a pigment-based printing, just because I think the saturation of this image would play a little bit stronger. Okay, so here we have another Fuji Crystal Archive, and in this case it's on gloss paper, and sorry for the glare and the reflection, that's because of the gloss paper, but here's an example of a print that I'm not happy with because, and you're probably not going to be able to see it too well, but essentially because of the expired film and the high ISO of the film, it was a Lomo 800 film, and the underexposed film, like a lot of my work, the grain is just too pronounced. And it's not particularly, it reminds me of digital noise a little bit when printed in this way. So I reprinted this, and I don't have it, but I reprinted it and sent it to someone who I print swapped with, and I printed it as a pigment-based print, and it looked much, much better. The grain just seemed to mesh with the textured paper, and the inkjet just seemed to enhance the grain in a more saturated, beautiful way. Okay, and here we have another pigment print on Palo, it's a Palo Duro paper. This is a pigment-based print, and it's in plastic, so there's a little bit of a glare. Again, this was done at Tweak Imaging, and it looks fantastic. This was shot on Lomo turquoise film, and I'm really happy with the feel of this print, the look of this print, the colors, and there you go. And okay, so something a little bit different now. The next two prints that I actually made myself in my local darkroom. This is an image from my project Paths, and these are RC paper, so not the fiber-based paper. I think I'd prefer that, or I know I prefer that. I just didn't have the that paper at the time. But these are a couple of black and white images that I printed in the darkroom. Really happy with this print and just the contrast that I was able to get. And I love printing black and white in the darkroom because you get, I'm not a master printer obviously, so you get all these kind of flaws and this low fidelity that gives it kind of a soulful, for lack of a better word, amateurish look to it, which I think kind of enhances its originality. Just for your own keepsake, not necessarily for something I want to reproduce and sell, but just for my own personal enjoyment. So just a couple more. And really quickly, we've got, this is another Fuji Crystal Archive C print where the colors look fantastic. As I said before, when you have the right exposure and a well-exposed sheet of film, the colors and the resolution look great for C prints for my money. Another C print, this was shot on slide film during the eclipse, as some of you may be familiar with this image that I've shot. And both of these prints, again, were C prints, Fuji Crystal Archive, and they look fantastic. I'll just show you a couple more. I know it's going a little bit long. Another C print where the colors look great. This was Fuji Pro 400H, which I shot at 100. And wanted to briefly share this image because this was actually a silver gelatin print that was made using the darkroom silver-gelatin.com. They offer that. A lot of you may not be aware of that, and that's a pretty cool option because it's pretty affordable. If you want to see one of your black and white images in silver gelatin, you can order that if you don't have access to a darkroom, and it looks great. And the last thing I'm going to show you is just this book that I made on Blurb for my own personal reference. I kind of keep it as a kind of a portfolio. I use their trade book option to design the book and print the book, and I just wanted to share that, saying the design looks great, but I would not recommend printing with Blurb using their trade book option for color images. I don't have any experience with the black and white, but the images just don't look particularly great. But it was very affordable, and it's nice to have as a short reference. So, sounds like I'm rushing, but that is going to be all for today, and I hope you guys learned something. And if you have any questions, please leave it in the comments below, and I will see you next time.